thing working? Give me some sound over here. Yeah.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Good morning. Welcome in. Ole Miss with the Tito's Vodka Bloody Mary game this weekend, 11 a.m. Figure the Grove will be packed by about 8, and they'll be rolling from there. So they will go 7-0 if they win this weekend. They are a 15-point favorite. 15 points over Auburn. They beat Auburn 6 times since 1990. And we're going to go to the Dos Equis guest line and welcome in David Johnson, Rebels 247, and talk a little Ole Miss football with the Auburn. Good time to catch Auburn with the Auburn Tigers coming into town. There's been a lot of debate and discussion today on the Ole Miss Rebels and who they are and what they are 6 games in. So, David Johnson, good morning. I want to start with, look, Ole Miss this is the schedule of all time as far as the scheduling gods landing their way. But they did what they had to do, and they're 6-0. Are there any concerns as far as what your takeaway from the 6 games with Ole Miss 6-0 out of the gate?
Yeah, of course there are concerns. The schedule is what it is. When this thing was put together so many odd years ago, nobody knew that Georgia Tech wasn't going to be a top 10 team, or, that Kentucky was not going to live up to be what they were ranked when the Rebels played them at number 7 in the country. It has been a light schedule. I don't think anybody can argue against that. I mean, if you go out there and you scoreboard watch, Bo, and, you see South Carolina dominate Kentucky in Lexington without Will Levis over the weekend, that's a concern. The United States Naval Academy put 53 points up on Tulsa Saturday in a 53-21 win. Those things concern you. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Alabama whooped Vandy 55-3. So you look at Ole Miss's 6-0 start, 3 of those games, there were some tight times against Tulsa. There was definitely a tight time against Tulsa Kentucky late in the fourth quarter. And then, Vanderbilt outplayed Ole Miss in the first half Saturday before the Rebels woke up and ran away, outscoring Vandy 42-8 the rest of the way. So, if I said there were no concerns, I'd be lying. And I think any Ole Miss fan that tells you that would not be telling the truth. Of course there are concerns, but you're 6 games into your schedule. You're 6-0. You can't be any better than that. They're ranked 9th in the country. There's no doubt the schedule is about to take a turn for the tough, so to speak. I said all summer long, all spring long, I thought Ole Miss would go to Baton Rouge 7-0. I think that's going to happen. I think they're going to beat Auburn. They're 2 touchdown favorites to do so Saturday. And, I picked Ole Miss to go 10-2 this year. I'm sticking to that. I think Alabama may still be a bridge too far. Ole Miss could win that game. Will they? I don't think it's likely. And I think Ole Miss trips up to somebody else along the way. So I think 10-2 is in the window, which, considering everything they lost last year, their entire backfield, an all-star quarterback, to go 10-2 back-to-back years in the regular season, I think that's a win for Ole Miss fans.
Yeah, no doubt about that. David Johnson, Ole Miss insider, olemiss.247sports.com. All right, let's go to offense. They scored a ton of points against Vandy in the second half. But going into that game, they had only scored 3 points in the second half in their last 2 games. What do you make of that, David?
I don't make a whole lot of it, to be honest with you. I mean, good teams do what they have to do to win, and Ole Miss has been able to do that. And it just so happened Saturday in Nashville, they had to score points in the second half. It started with that late touchdown right there at the second quarter to cut it to 2017 at halftime. And from that point forward, it was a 42-8 rout the rest of the way. But they had to do it. They sleptwalked through the first half. I don't think anybody could argue that they didn't do that. And it was either that or come home to Oxford with a big, bad black eye. And they found themselves and played well in the third and fourth quarters.
As far as Dart, is he where you thought he'd be, ahead, behind? What do you see?
I'm beginning to believe in Jackson Dart a little bit, to be honest with you. He had the 2 interceptions, both of them kind of boneheaded plays, but he also threw for 448 yards and 3 touchdowns on a day when Vanderbilt decided, hey, we're not going to let Ole Miss run all over us. We're going to slow their running game down. First game all year, Ole Miss did not have a 100-yard rusher. Zach Evans ran for 80. He led the way. And, so they made Dart beat him, and he did. And I'm beginning to believe Jackson Dart is starting to find himself in this offense. I mean, Jonathan Mingo, a guy from Brandon, Mississippi, has a well of a day, 242 yards receiving. Jordan Watkins, 117 yards receiving. We all know Malik Heath has already shown, what he can do. He can be that big play guy as well. They're starting to have targets emerge, and I like where they're at with Jackson Dart. Is he an all-SEC quarterback this year? No, but neither was Matt Corral back in 2020. I think Jackson Dart is on the path to becoming one of the most established passers in the SEC.
I think Jordan Watkins is your best receiver. Your thoughts as far as talent, upside, what he could be?
He has certainly played well lately. He played well Saturday. I don't know. That would be I'd be stretching the truth if I said I thought that. I still think Jonathan Mingo and Malik Heath are probably, if you're looking at NFL talent type guys. But what Jordan brings you, he gives you some, number one, versatility. He can play on the edge and he can play in the slot. But he really gives you a slot type receiver that can, catch balls going across the middle of the field. And we saw Saturday can just turn the gas on, break it loose, make it go for long yardage.
Yeah. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. What are you concerned about?
I don't know that I would say I'm concerned necessarily about anything. Going into the season, I was concerned about linebacker big time. But with the play of Troy Brown and Austin Keys, even Ashante Sistrunk to an extent, Kari Coleman is getting healthy. We all saw what he could do early on in the season. I don't know that I've got a really big concern anywhere, but I'll say this. Outside of Kentucky and Will Levis with Chris Rodriguez in the backfield, I don't know that Ole Miss has played an offense yet that could really make you start having those concerns on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to run into those kind of offenses coming up over the next couple of weeks. That much is for sure. So I think overall, this is a better defense than it was last year. How much better? I just don't think we know yet based upon the quality of opponent Ole Miss has faced at this point of the season.
How does David Johnson, OleMiss.247sports.com, Ole Miss insider, he joins us on the Dos Equis guest line. Ole Miss will host Auburn this weekend, and as David said, they should go 7-0. They're a 15-point favorite over the Auburn Tigers. If I had to guess, they've never been a 15-point favorite over Auburn in the history of point spreads.
I wouldn't think so. And you go back and look at the series history. I think I saw this yesterday. For as long as they've been playing each other, Ole Miss has only won 3 times in Oxford, and one of those had to be vacated. So officially only twice in Oxford. And that's a long-running series right there. So not a lot of success against Auburn over the years. But this year's different. You've got one program that is ascending in all areas, and that's Ole Miss. And you've got one program that has really kind of hit the bottom of the barrel in the SEC and is likely headed towards a coaching change at the end of this year.
No doubt. David Johnson on the Out of Bounds show. What about injuries, David? How does everything look going into week 7?
Well, as Lane corrected us yesterday at the press conference, he does not talk about injuries. But it looks like Michael Trigg, the tight end transfer from USC, could be out for the year. Broken collarbone, requiring surgery. And, there are some holding out hope that he could be back for a bowl game. But, why are you going to rehab a kid for the entirety of the rest of the season and bring him back, maybe perhaps rush him back to play in a bowl game? I don't think you do that. So I think we've probably seen the last of Michael Trigg this year. Everybody else seems to be on the mend. Wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Ulysses Bentley play a little running back this weekend and Jalen Robinson get some more snaps at wide receiver. But other than the beats and bangs every SEC team's got this time of the year, Ole Miss is faced with that as well.
Your new defensive coordinator is doing a hell of a job, David.
Yeah, he is. And,
Chris Partridge.
You look ahead, and everybody likes to do this, right? We all like to say, well, what do you do if this guy leaves, and is this guy going to go, and who's going to offer this guy? I mean, look, Chris Partridge is destined. He's going to become a head coach one day. There's no doubt about it. He's an unbelievable recruiter. I mean, you see this freshman running around, Davis and Igbinosun, starting at cornerback for Ole Miss. Well, he's one of Partridge's guys he brought in from New Jersey. I mean, Isheem Young, the transfer from Iowa State, one of Chris Partridge's guys. Tyshim Johnson, all SEC caliber safety, one of Partridge's guys. And now we find out, hey, this guy can coach defense too. Partridge is going to be a head coach one day. I don't know if it'll be this coming year or the next year, but it's coming. And Lane Kiffin just keeps picking. He keeps picking great assistant coaches, Bo.
Yes. No, he's done a great job. It's really an unbelievable run, unprecedented, right? 16-3 in the last 19 games, David.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, when you look at and Ole Miss has won, I think, 13 in a row inside Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. That's a streak that goes back to those glory days of the 1960s. I didn't live through, but I always hear everybody talk about. There's a lot of kinship, I think, between what happened at Ole Miss in the late 50s and the early 60s on the gridiron and as to what's going on right now. And, Lane Kiffin is an interesting guy. I mean, when he first got here, I think you could kind of tell he wasn't comfortable here, and maybe Ole Miss wasn't quite comfortable with him either, and they had to kind of fill each other out. And lo and behold, 2.5 years later, it's been a match made in heaven. I think the guy has found his groove in Oxford. And I think Ole Miss has found its groove with Lane Kiffin. I mean, there are good things going on up here right now. I'll give them that much.
And how surprised are you with Judkins? I mean, I know everybody thought he was good, but are you surprised he's this good this early?
I got reports down at the Mississippi-Alabama game back last December that the Judkins kid from Alabama, man, he just didn't look like the real deal. That he was kind of small, and then he goes out there and plays a well of a game. And then really the first time I put eyes on him in person was in spring. And you knew then that they had gotten a kid that was mature beyond his years, that had something to him. So I'm not going to say we were totally surprised, because when fall camp rolled around, he kept on doing what he was doing. But to see him, whether it has been through the misfortune of Zach Evans been a little banged up or not, kind of surged to the front of that Ole Miss running back pack. That's been a little bit of a surprise, because you go out and get Zach Evans, one of the best running backs in the country, through the transfer portal, and here's this, skinny freshman from Alabama that's kind of stealing the show every Saturday. So, bring on more Quinshon, man. We need that.
Are you expecting a sellout crowd Saturday morning?
Yeah, I think so. I think at this point, Ole Miss's fan base, there was a lot made of the crowds in the month of September. But come on, man, look who you were playing your home games.
I'm with you.
I mean, it was Troy, Central Arkansas, Tulsa. I mean, nobody was coming to that. And, I mean, the Kentucky game rolls around, and it's a hard sellout. I think the sixth largest crowd in Ole Miss history. You know, this one Saturday ought to top that, to be honest with you. It should be an Ole Miss win. It's kind of the gateway for this big stretch run at the end of the year. You know, I think Rebel Nation's going to be there. There was nothing wrong with the Ole Miss fan base to begin with. Lane was correctly pointing it out, I think, because, yeah, you'd look up and the stands were empty. But, again, it was who you were playing, Bo.
I agree. When it's 110 degrees and you're playing Central Arkansas, I'm not going.
You're going to drop $7 bills on taking a family of 4 to a game on the weekend.
Well, that's a great point.
I mean,
look, man, I know. Yeah.
Hotel rooms in Oxford, it's a 3-night guarantee at around $500-$600 a night.
Sure.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, you've got to buy.
So it's $2,000. It's $2,000.
Yeah, absolutely. It's $2,000 to go to a ball game for the weekend.
Yeah.
If you want to stay here.
All right. Well, what's your schedule today? What's going on?
Well, we'll have a player press conference around noon today, and you know that's pretty much it. You know, we'll just be writing about the Rebels all day long today.
David Johnson, Rebels 24, Ole Miss.247sports.com on the Out of Bounds show. Blake Scott's got one question before we let David Johnson go.
David, a lot's been made, and you just mentioned it, of the back half of the schedule versus the front half, how much tougher things will get, especially because you play 3 true road games in the SEC. Vanderbilt might as well be a home game for whoever shows up. So my question is, my question is, through 6 games, who is the alpha leader on offense or defense or both sides that when they go on the road, because I don't think it'll happen this weekend. It might, but I don't think it will. When they go on the road or they play in Alabama and they really get challenged and it's put up or shut up, everything's against the wall, who's kind of the guy? Is Jackson Dart already that as a redshirt freshman? Is there another guy on offense? Is there a defensive guy? Because Sam Williams felt like that guy on defense last year.
Sure.
Who is that guy for Ole Miss when the going gets tough in this back 6?
Yeah, I think on offense, by default, it has to be the quarterback. You know, it all starts with him, and you know, he's the most important position on the field. So yeah, Jackson Dart, I think on offense, and it's been good that he's got these 6 games under his belt, and you know, his teammates are believing in him now. That's the most important thing. And you're right, that's going to be an area Ole Miss is going to have to tap into down the stretch. On defense, look, I go with A.J. Finley, the safety. He's been around here forever. He's certainly a very talented player. But A.J. off the field is one of the most mature kids on this team. You know, and I see Davison Igbenogson, the true freshman, eventually warping into that role for Ole Miss. But A.J. Finley, I gotta think that when they're in a defensive huddle, nobody's talking when A.J.'s talking. He knows what he's doing back there.
We'll leave it there. Ole Miss Insider, David Johnson, Ole Miss.247sports.com. And David joined us on the Dos Equis guest line. David, thanks, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Hey, guys, a lot of fun. Thank you.
DJ in the house on the Dos Equis guest line talking Ole Miss. They'll have another home game this weekend after going on the road to Nashville, and they will host the Auburn Tigers. Auburn just got back from Athens, and they took their manhood there. Georgia did, and now they go to Oxford.
So if you watched that game Saturday, you may have thought Auburn never left the Plains.
Wow. Will they this weekend?
Yikes. It's a shorter drive.
It is a – well, I would think they're getting on a plane.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
I'm confident that they are. Yeah.
I don't know. When you lose as bad as Harsin does, do you lose your plane privileges?
Maybe you do.
Send a message. 11
a.m. game on ESPN, Blake. That's right after game day. That's a good window.
Ooh. I guess the real question is Harsin let back on the plane prior to the CBS 2:30 game? Or have they just left him in Oxford? They tell him to Uber?
Well, if they get blown out.
Let's say they lose by 20. So here's a little fact for you that I didn't know, but I found this out during the interview, okay? Ole Miss tied for 4th in the country in explosive plays over 20 yards. They have 41 plays this year of over 20-plus yards. Now, I'd have to go back and look at how many of those just came against Vanderbilt.
Right,
but
a bunch.
41 plays. The leader in the country is Florida State with 45. Alabama's tied with Ole Miss at 41 explosive plays over 20-plus yards.
Okay.
So Ole Miss could foreseeably blow out Auburn because they're that bad.
Well, let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, they had a bunch on Saturday.
Yeah. Let's say Ole Miss
6,
drubs them.
7.
Let's say this gets out of hand a la Arkansas and Mississippi State, right? Like early. Like State was up 21-0. And Arkansas had a little bit of mettle to at least get it to 21-10 and then 27-17, right? Auburn won't do that. Auburn won't even get it to 17 potentially. So let's say Ole Miss does go up big, 28 in the first quarter, maybe 28-35 in the first half. Harsin might not get back on the bus.
Well, they got an off week.
So I'm saying he'll have 2 weeks to get back to the Plains and clear his office out.
Right. So I wonder if they go ahead and do the whole interim.
Well, I've said from in the offseason he was fired by the off week.
Both did.
That was been my mantra from day one.
And this will, if they get blown out, he may very well get fired on Sunday.
It'd be the third.
Actually, there's plenty of day left when they get back. It's an hour plane ride. So
they looked like they were ready to meet him after the Missouri game in the field.
I don't know who it would be since they don't have an AD.
They have a sitting AD right now.
Well, Alan Green is technically the AD until December, but he's already said he's leaving.
Yes. Well, they have someone else who's operating day to day. War Eagle Rich texted us in about a week ago about this.
Yeah, that person's not making a decision like that.
But I assume it would be him and the president who would walk up and fire them.
I would say the president, yes, and maybe a booster.
Yeah. They'll let the sitting AD take the fall for it.
Why does booster sound so kind of derogatory and alum sounds really nice?
I don't know.
Is it because we associate boosters with paying players,
brown bags,
being dirty, and under the table stuff?
You got to be careful because there's other boosters you can take that are dirty and under the table too. So you got to be careful with boosters.
I mean, what alum sounds great, right?
Alum sounds like pride and prestige.
Prestigious.
Booster sounds like Ray down at the truck stop dropping off cash stacks.
The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Upgrade your golf bag this week at Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Also, the Hilton Jackson on County Line Road. It's where you want to put your clients or your family when they come visit. Centrally located, right by Drago's. The Hilton Jackson on County Line Road, right across from Edwin Watts Golf Shop. Thanks for listening to the show. If you missed anything, hit Apple Podcasts, search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds. We would love for you to subscribe. We hope you have a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow.